Would you like to accelerate your career and reach your full potential in just minutes a day? Welcome to the LEADx Show with New York Times best-selling author and Inc. 500 entrepreneur, Kevin Kruse.
Today, Tara Millette shares her deepest, darkest failure story. And I might share one too. Hello, everyone. I'm Kevin Kruse. Welcome to the LEADx Show, helping you to stand out and to get ahead. Today, of course, we're broadcasting live to our Facebook audience. And podcast listeners, if you want to be notified when we go live on Facebook, just go to LEADx Life on Facebook, like the page, turn on notifications, and then you'll get a little reminder when we go live on video. And today, of course, is the weekly wrap-up show. This is where we get to take our time. We get to rant about whatever we feel like ranting about. And we answer some of your questions. And, of course, I am joined today by LEADx editor Tara Millette. Hello, Tara.
Hello, Kevin. How are you?
I'm good. I'm always off our game with this technology. We're trying to work with Facebook Live. I don't know, how this is working for everybody. It's a little bit of a struggle to get into the mood. But how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm feeling pretty good. I'm having a new crisis of fitness because, as you know, yesterday was my boyfriend's birthday, so I baked him an incredibly decadent cake. Too much butter, so much butter. No one needs that much butter, and yet I used that much butter. And I just woke up feeling like, God, I'm turning 30 at the end of this month. It's probably time I invest in some kind of fitness routine before I just can't leave the house anymore. So that's been my new headspace today. I'm like, I got to find a way to kind of get that going. And I know you talk about that a lot too, about kind of trying to find a good rhythm. So
it's crazy. That's a big birthday coming up. And I do have to tell you, being a couple decades further down the road, it doesn't get easier. So
good.
Yeah, start that habit now. It's not going to get easier.
I say that every year too. I'm like, I got to do it now before it's so hard to start. And every year I keep saying it. So we'll see. I'm hoping I can get around to it, but maybe some tips will come up from our listeners and watchers, and I can kind of steal their know-how.
Yeah, sounds good. So is Ryan going to make you some kind of decadent cake at the end of the month for your birthday?
He better.
So that means he can bake.
Or maybe, you know what? I'll probably just have to eat vegetables from here on out. So maybe he can just steam me some broccoli and stick a candle in it, and I'll just have to deal with that.
With enough butter, the broccoli might go down just fine.
Butter and salt, that'll make the difference on that.
You're forgetting cheese, but anyway.
Yeah, true. But yeah.
I was hoping that I was going to be able to report that I finished another chapter. I'm so close on the book I've been working on. So by the end of today, but it was kind of neat. The chapter I'm writing is it's actually about this thing I talk about on LEADx all the time about if leadership is influence, then we need to remember that we're influencing all the time, everywhere, whether we want to or not. And I put up a short post on my LinkedIn profile, if anybody wants to follow me or connect on LinkedIn. And it's it's been read 60,000 times in the last day and a half.
Wow.
And what it was is I shared a couple of the research papers that show the power of if you have dinner with your kids at night. And now this is and I say it in a thing, this is a kind of an emotionally triggering thing because the survey suggests that about 47% of families in the United States eat dinner together 5 or more nights of the week, most of the time. But that means half or a little more than half are not. And I think there's all kinds of I'm speaking myself, there's parental guilt out there and just, struggling to try to be super parent and super worker and exercise and all that. Mm-hmm. But the data was pretty clear. If you do have dinner at home with your teenagers, your daughters are half as likely to use cigarettes, alcohol, or pot in high school. So you cut that risk of substance abuse in half if you have dinner, at home. And then there was another one that's a little unusual, which is that most parents, really are hoping that their teenagers are not sexually active, in high school, and they worry about all that.
Yeah.
And for those who actually have, dinner at home most nights, you cut the risk that your kids are sexually active in high school by a third. And so again, it's like there's no bystander here. It's like if you're either having dinner at home with your kids or you're not.
Yeah.
In one direction, you're cutting the risk of risky behaviors in half. The other direction, it doubles. So and I'm a single parent. It's hard. I'm not perfect. There's plenty of weeks where I don't hit that 5 mark. But it's been interesting because it's gotten passed along a lot. And of course, all the people who are having dinner with their kids, they're leaving notes and high-fiving each other and stuff. And then there's a few others who are, suggesting that it's not realistic or they have different kinds of quality time. But the studies show that dinner is a unique thing. Like it's independent of your feelings of connectedness to your parents, your communication. And they don't even know really why. It might be something as simple as there's just less time for your teenagers to be out getting into trouble. I don't know. But that was sort of the big thing. I was doing the research for the chapter. I love procrastinating. So I'm like, let me share this wisdom on LinkedIn. And then boom, it's just become like this huge topic. So anyway, I just thought that was fun and wanted to share it with the podcast audience.
That's super interesting. What a weirdly specific correlation. I had no idea. And I was lucky enough to have consistently, I would say, meals, dinner with my parents most nights throughout high school. And I never smoked or drank.
I was going to say, I don't know how many details of your high school social life you want to share, but
I was in an all-girls private school, so it was pretty easy for me to stay not sexually active.
Well, I don't know.
I mean, yeah, for me, for others, whatever. But I'm thinking about it. I was pretty kind of sheltered from that stuff, I think. And we had the bad girls at school that smoked and stuff, but I never partook. And I wonder, what it really was in my psychology that allowed that to happen. That's super interesting. No wonder it went viral. I mean,
yeah, I know. Again, we're leading as parents, leading at work. It's unavoidable.
Cool stuff.
So I know we're getting ready to do the iTunes review of the week. And Tara, I just sure hope that this is being recorded by Facebook, since we have no live viewers right now. I would sure hate to have to record this show all over again in an hour.
Yes, I would too. But then again, maybe people are just so intimidated by how great this show is right now.
I love that.
That they're like, you know what? I'll save that for later. It's going to be good for later. A little treat.
It's good thinking. And I do need to remember that today we're broadcasting through the Kevin Kruse channel. It's being shared on LEADx. So we might have like 1 million listeners over on the LEADx page, and they're just not showing up on the Kevin Kruse page. So I'm going to go with that.
Okay, yeah, we got 1 million viewers. I like it. A lot of pressure though. All right, so let's get to our iTunes review of the week, right? We had a lot this week. You sent me a whole batch. I picked one of those because I thought they were also great, but we've been getting a lot of great responses, so I encourage people to keep doing that. But this one in particular is from Matt Walker. He's a mid-level manager in an Australian government department. And he wrote, Kevin and his variety of guests constantly provide fresh leadership coaching perspectives that inspire you to become a better leader every day. And as a bonus, it is both engaging and entertaining. This podcast has been a consistent source of ideas for self-improvement, for myself as a leader, and for guiding others to also improve. Try an episode. You won't be disappointed, and you'll likely be hooked.
Love that review.
Matt, you may have to write some of our copy because that was pretty slamming. And Matt very kindly requested, instead of getting some awesome LEADx swag that we donate to Cerebral Palsy Alliance, which is a benefactor of the September campaign that he's involved with. So we're going ahead and doing that for you, Matt. And thank you for doing that. That's always a great thing to do. And I just want to encourage any listeners, viewers out there, please write a review on our iTunes and then reach out to us at info@leadx.org. And we'll send you some cool swag as a thank you, perhaps a mug, perhaps a T-shirt. And anyone else out there, please subscribe. And leave you can leave that rating on leadx.org. I think it's /subscribe is the right way to do it. So go ahead and do that and reach out to us, and we might, talk about it on air. So thanks again, Matt. That was great.
And I also want to remind people, I don't think we've talked about this enough, that in addition to the podcast show and the weekly show on Facebook, we're doing a ton of other free training over at leadx.org, including weekly webinars, free training from some of our guests. So for example, last Friday we had Wendy Sachs, and she was teaching us all about how to build higher levels of confidence, how to pivot in our career. So it was sort of a career-focused one. And today, meaning the day the podcast goes live, September 15th, we have a live webinar. Most of them are at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. And the one for September 15th is Jonathan Raymond. Now, he's the author of Good Authority. He'll be teaching for an hour how to be a great manager. And, I probably quote him more than any of our other guests, because he's got a phrase. He says, be more Yoda, less Superman.
Yes,
so as leaders, we want to solve problems and help people and all the rest, but that actually isn't growing people. That's not growing the next, generation of talent. But Yoda asks questions. Yoda is a little weird, but be more like Yoda, less like Superman. But my point, Tara,
be more
I do have one, is to tell everybody, you got to get over to leadx.org and sign up for our email list, because this is the way we'll tell you every week, like, hey, here's the free training of the week. I do some of the sessions. We have outside experts. We have our guests doing free webinars. So there's a lot of cool stuff over there. Just go to leadx.org. Yeah, that was my reminder.
Nice. I like it. And I think we might be ready to take some questions. So anyone out there on the Facebook Live video who has a question for us, feel free to go ahead and type those in now, and we'll see if we can answer a few of those at the end here. Are you all set?
Yeah.
Or do you need a moment?
Yeah, I know. I'm like losing my place online. We have actually David out on our live audience was cracking me up. He says, do or do not, there is no try. So he's just riffing off the Yoda comment, which I love.
It's perfect. Yeah.
So anyway, let's just go right into questions.
Sure. Okay. So this one is from Joe Grenhoff, I believe it's pronounced. Feel free to butcher me for that later, Joe. It's actually a fan comment first, so we can talk about it a little later. I love the LEADx show. Something to look at for a career tip is Toastmasters. If you aren't familiar with it, Toastmasters helps with public speaking, communication, and leadership skills. Visiting a club is free, and becoming a member is very affordable. That's a great point, actually.
Yeah, I've not been a Toastmaster member myself. My father was, so I've known about Toastmasters ever since I was a kid. And I mean, dozens and dozens of the best public speakers and presenters I know have gone through Toastmasters. And it's not just for people who want to do professional speaking or do it a lot. I mean, one of the fundamental things you'll get out of it is we all have in casual conversation verbal pauses, the ums, the ahs, and a new one is like. People say like a lot. And I do it all the time. But when you're presenting, in the boardroom, in the conference room, or in front of an audience, you want to get those verbal pauses out. And so that's like a fundamental thing that Toastmasters can get you to kind of overcome very quickly. So, Joe, I appreciate that reminder. We hadn't talked about Toastmasters before, and that is a great career tip.
It's so true. And even just thinking about trying to eliminate uhs and ums and likes is making me itchy. Like it sounds so
makes me do more of them.
Right?
It makes me do more of them as soon as I become aware.
I'm more aware of it. Yeah, it's so funny. But that's a great tip. Thank you, Joe. All right, next question. My name is Stephen from Berlin, Germany. Right now, I'm working around 40 to 45 hours a week at a tax accountant office. And besides the job, I'm studying to become a certified tax accountant. And I also have a little girl of 1.5 years old and a beautiful wife who wants to have another baby. My normal day looks like this. Get up around 5:30 a.m., depending on the little one. got to be at work until 5 p.m. Afterwards, I have class until 8:30 p.m., or I'm home taking care of the little one, and then learning from around 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. During the weekend, I'm either having class or studying. It's a lot of pressure. And sometimes I don't know what to do and hope to get some input to get some of the pressure off. Any tips or suggestions on how to handle everything?
Yes, Stephen, thanks for writing in. Congrats on your family and wanting to do it all. Now, we've gotten versions of this question before. So I think that the short answer is, when it comes to how do you do everything, how do you do it all, you can't. So again, there's 1,440 minutes in the day. We can't make more minutes. They're going to go somewhere. And so the big picture around extreme productivity, which is get as much done as possible and lower the stress, is to be mindful. So, Stephen, sounds like you've probably got this figured out, but you think about what at this point in my life is most important. My job, my family, and it's sounding like the third is studying for the test. And then you just think ahead of time, okay, so how many hours a day, hours a week am I going to do for the job? You mentioned 40 or 45. How many hours is going to be for the family time? And once you think it through, again, you can't make more time. So you just acknowledge this is the plan and I'm going to work the plan. And you tend to sleep better at night and not feel the stress because you're just doing what you can do. Now, I will say, though, the 15 secrets to extreme productivity, there's a lot of different ways where you can get the most out of every hour. The ones I would suggest, Stephen, that you review or go to is, remember that it's not really about time. It's about energy and focus. So, you could, let's say you're studying after a long day of work. For myself, if I'm awake and alert and high energy, maybe I'll be able to study, 10 pages or 15 pages of material. But if I'm half asleep and I'm sluggish and I'm unfocused, maybe I'm only going to be able to study 7 pages. So it's the same amount of time, but the productivity is different. So don't forget about the energy portions. An easy one is you want to drink a ton of water. Water gives us energy. Most of us drink probably half the water we really should be drinking. I encourage people to go up to a gallon a day. I saw Tara sipping as I was reminding everyone about water. I would also say when it comes to sleep, the thing that people don't realize is maybe you can't get 7 or 8 hours of sleep, but it's about quality sleep. It's about deep sleep. So a lot of people, especially those with small kids, they think they're getting 7 hours of sleep, or they'll claim that they're sleeping for 7 hours, but you're staying in shallow sleep. You're waking up, even if you don't remember waking up. So even if you say, well, I'm going to sleep less, but I'm going to find a way to keep it quiet, keep it dark, keep it cool, and try to get a deeper sleep, that's going to help with the energy. The other, success tip from those 15 secrets is delegation. And that sounds weird. How do you delegate what you're doing now? Delegation takes many forms. So at home, is it that, there's a family member, a mom or a mother-in-law that can come in and take 30 minutes a day or 2 hours one afternoon a week with your daughter to help out? Is there a neighbor kid that you can throw 15 euros to give you a date night one night a week or something? So try to think about, you can sort of buy time with money in this delegation frame. But having said that, I don't know, Stephen, that what you're describing, it's tough, but it's like my entire 20s, it was work my butt off, take care of babies. That was pretty much it. I did not have a day off or vacation or fun or anything. Now, I should have put exercise in, but you are just in a hard time of life. So, be gentle on yourself. You can't do it all. And your wife, your kids, they need you to be healthy and happy for the long haul. They need you to be available physically and emotionally. So do what you can and realize that, there's no such thing as perfect, and times will get better. Tara's about ready to find out 30s are even better than the 20s. So, so things calm down. So that would be my long advice for Stephen.
That's great, Kevin. I love all of that. I also think, something you said is really important is just realizing that, it's not going to be an easy time. And no, you're not going to be able to be everything to everyone at every moment. And relieving yourself of the expectation that you should somehow be accomplishing everything perfectly is probably going to do a lot of help. Just realizing, hey, it's going to be a busy time, and that's what life's about. Sometimes everything converges. It's a kind of perfect storm, and it's just about getting through it and realizing also that it's temporary, right? And that a lot of these steps that Stephen seems to be taking is to ensure that he has a great career, right? Right. Studying on the side, that's a great goal. And then eventually you're not going to be studying, right? You're going to be just working. So, keeping that in mind and keeping your overall goals in mind and cutting yourself some slack, I think is a great way to think about it. Awesome. All right, Stephen, keep us up to date on that. Keep reaching out. Let us know how things are going. We want to hear how that goes. And I think we actually have a fancy question from our awesome audio app thing, right?
We do, from a super fan, TC Thompson. And it's a good time to remind people, all of you listeners out there, if you want to submit a question for the weekly show, please go to leadx.org/askkevin. And there's a little button, you click it, you can just say your question out loud, hit a button, and then it arrives in our email inbox so that we can play it on the show. Feel free to email us questions as well, but this is, it's nice to hear your voice asking the question sort of in person. So let me play it, and we'll listen from a question from TC Thompson.
Hey, Kevin, Tara. Fellow LEADx contributor TC Thompson here. I've been with you since early on, but many folks who listen may not have. So I was wondering, could you share a time, maybe early in each of your careers, when you failed, and what did you learn from it?
So he's flipping the table on us, Tara.
Wow, TC.
So for everyone who listens to our daily show, of course, that's always our lead-off question. And I had got an email from someone else, Tara, recently, a listener who said, I laugh because everybody always makes the same first joke about only one failure. And it's true. And of course, I laugh every time ha, 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 that's true. Because everyone's going to do that. There was one guest, and I won't say who it is. So we've had 100 guests so far.
Oh, yeah.
One guy, and in the pre-show, I said, hey, I just want to remind you, the first question is your failure. He's like, my failure? Huh? Yeah, do you want a couple of seconds? He's like, sure. And it took him forever. He says he couldn't think of a failure. So finally came up with one. But I'm like, who is this guy that doesn't think he's ever had a failure to share? Maybe he was making it too big or something.
I must study under this man, because that sounds like a great way to go through life, to just be like, no, I never fail.
I'm perfect.
I succeed or I become awesomer. Those are the only two options.
So Tara, you go first. What's a failure story you want to share?
Just one? Okay. You know what? I'll talk about one that I actually kind of delved into a little bit in one of my pieces on LEADx, where I talked about learning not to interrupt as much. It was kind of wrapped up in a bigger issue, which was, I'd been in comedy for years, and I got my first big, grown-up comedy writing gig, and it was a more professional environment. I kind of had built these habits around a really kind of hot mess of comedians just trying to kind of one-up each other and, make ideas better and talking over each other, and it's really energetic. And I was used to that way of interacting with other comedians and being creative and pitching things. And I kind of brought all of those habits to the table where no one had really asked for it. I delivered the wrong dish. And so I was bringing these habits, and I didn't realize, right? I think I'm being enthusiastic. I think I'm being energetic. I think I'm adding to the, the dialogue. And then a coworker complained about me to my boss. And it was the first time I'd really, because I like to think of myself as relatively easygoing, but it was the first time that, that I'd acted in such a way that someone felt they needed to go to their higher up to address my behavior. And it really hurt. I was really surprised how much it hurt. And of course, my knee-jerk reaction was like, well, he's wrong. I'm a really cool person. He's crazy. This is how comedy is. And after that kind of initial reaction, I actually really started thinking about it. And I was like, what I thought was adding on to something other people are obviously interpreting as me thinking that their idea isn't worth finishing and that mine is better. And that's really all that mattered. You know, my intent in that moment didn't matter as much as the impression it was giving. And if the intent and the impression are matching up, then I was doing something wrong. So once I kind of took that on board and relaxed a little bit, and I probably felt like I had something to prove. But once I kind of relaxed, I felt like I got better too. My ideas got better. The dialogue got better. So that was kind of one of the more monumental moments in my professional career where I really just didn't get it until I did.
Well, you're being really good about saying like, okay, you know, yeah, it was on me and I learned and I got better. But was that the case, or is this just a cultural issue? Like, I think there are some companies that really have a sparring culture. Like, we're gonna red team every idea and tear you down before it becomes better. And then I think there's others that are very collegial and everything's kind of, you know, soft spoken. So was it a cultural issue as well, or no, it was just your communication was coming off wrong?
It was a bit of both, if I'm honest. You know, I think I contributed in the wrong direction and that made things worse culturally. But yeah, I agree. There was some issues in that place, I would argue. And but the point being was that I didn't come in trying to learn the culture and adapt to it and react to it in a way that was a little less, you know, kind of in everyone's face. And I think that might have been maybe the mistake. It's just not kind of taking the time to assess what this environment is, you know, what's expected of me, how are other people acting, what's the dynamic here, and kind of leaning into that. Instead, I just kind of burst in with my own shtick without taking that into account. So, I mean, yes and no to your point. Yeah, some comedy rooms are going to be super wild and obnoxious, and any creative, I think, endeavor is going to be like that. But then there's some times where you just have to take a beat and see what's going on and then go from there. So
a few times, like I've heard like SNL, former, SNL, Saturday Night Live veterans, SNL comics talk about what it was like in the pitch meetings at SNL. And it's funny because I, you know, as just a fan, a TV viewer, I would think, wow, if you're on SNL, like you're a big star and you're famous and all this stuff. And yet over and over again, they all sound so insecure because they're fighting to get their bits on the air, right? That week, to get their ideas. And it was amazing to me, all the little subtle things where they would swap favors about like, okay, well, you don't talk much this week because you got 2 bits on last week. I need to fight, or if you support my idea, I'll support your idea. And it was interesting that even in this, what I would have thought is both professional but like creatively supportive environment of SNL, it sounded pretty vicious.
I mean, yeah, because again, like if you don't, I'm sure you're worried as a writer that if you don't get a certain amount of sketches up, then they're going to fire you. You know, your job depends on how much value you bring week to week. And so in that respect, Mindy Kaling in her book has a great bit about that. They asked her to guest write on SNL one week, and she was like, it was just so not for me. She described it exactly as you did, just things falling flat in the room and people snickering, and it was kind of tough. And she was like, yeah, I just decided that wasn't for me. It's, you know, it's a weird environment. So, but yeah, I agree. I think there's the perception that it's this kind of wild, fun romp.
Right.
But it can be pretty stringent. Yeah.
Well, thanks for sharing that. That's a good one.
What about you, though? I mean, I feel like you've shared a few, but
yeah, I mean, I think again, I think TC and the longtime listeners. I mean, the one I tend to go to was the first business I started right out of college, and you know, I guess to remind everyone though, like again, the right way to think about all this is that unlike our friend who couldn't come up with a single failure, I mean, I would say, you know, especially as an entrepreneur, I mean, we fail at pretty much 80% of what we do. And I think, you know, with the businesses I've started, it's been about 50-50. So like I've had some that have hit big, and I've had, you know, really disastrous failures, expensive failures. As a writer, you know, I've had a couple of books that do really, really well and sell globally in multiple languages and all that. And like the last one I did, I mean, practically zero copies. I mean, it's not, which is another interesting thing about career, right? It's not like once you make it, you make it.
Right.
And I think you show up and the score is 0 every day or every year, and you got to do it again. And so, I think the bigger takeaway is just, it's like investors will talk about portfolio theory. Like if you just bet on one stock or invest in one company, it's very risky. It could go down. If you invest in 10 stocks or 10,000 stocks, which is what I do, then, you're betting on the whole thing over time, succeeding. And so that's the way I've been with how we run LEADx. Like, we experiment with things all the time. I experimented with last month's podcast interviews and I messed it up, and I could tell it wasn't in sync. I'm going to try something different next week with those interviews. We'll see if that's, any better. We just tried to roll out a viral marketing thing and no one's using it. And I looked at it yesterday and I figured out why. And it's a very expensive and time consuming mistake that we're going to have to fix. So the failures are all over the place. My biggest was that first company. I 21 years old, right out of college, had no money. So I was living off of a credit card, sleeping under my desk. You had a one-room office. And I would sneak out early in the morning before the landlord showed up. It was inside an accounting firm.
Wow.
I would shower at the YMCA and come back. And I would work, from 6 in the morning to midnight. And I did that for 365 days, including Christmas, birthdays, everything, straight through. And then shut it down because it just wasn't working. At the end of a year, I was staring into that YMCA mirror, and as much as this is 30 years, almost 30 years ago. So they're huge today, but back then, this is when Michael Dell and Steve Jobs and Bill Gates were just getting going. I saw Bill Gates give this visionary keynote, 20 feet from me. And so it was a great time to be doing all that. But looking back at me in that mirror was no Steve Jobs or Bill Gates or anybody like that. I put $15,000 on my credit card, hadn't slept in a bed in a year and had nothing to show for it. So I had to shut that down. And I basically got a job, paid off the credit card, and then did it again because I had credit card I could use. That one failed, so it was not at all easy. And I didn't have, like other business failures that have been more recent, they haven't been as dramatic, like sleeping on the floor, living out of my car kind of stuff. But money-wise, they're worse. So, it's like you end up with a little bit of money in the bank. You put a bigger bet down on, I'm a genius now. That was when I was young and dumb that I didn't know what I was doing. Yeah, well, it's humbling. It still happens. So, yeah, that was the biggest business failure from a life experience-wise. I've had $500,000 financial failures, since then. And I see us making mistakes. Well, I'll speak for myself. I see me making mistakes, definitely weekly, if not daily, but it's just an experiment. It's like, okay, that's one way not to do a podcast interview. So we just keep at it. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. I wonder, do you think has your attitude towards failure changed a lot since you were younger? Do you become kind of numb to it? Are you like, all right, I know there's an inherent risk. I understand it now, and you go for it anyways?
Yeah, I think, when I was in my 20s, the reason why I kept at it, it wasn't because I had the proper definition of failure. It's that I was so goal driven and all that stuff, not always for the right reasons. I've talked about that on other shows, that it was like I was gonna succeed or I was gonna die. There was only two choices. So I kept at it. But I think it was in my 30s and definitely after selling the last company 10 years ago and starting to do other things, that you get a little bit more perspective that, I don't know, you just get older, that you got less financial risk. You realize what counts is 95% of my happiness is do I have a good relationship with my kids? If my kids love me, the world's good, And so I think that you get some perspective in the quote unquote failures. It sounds trite, but the future is not your past. You are not, your past, and failure is just an experiment. But I talked a good game about that when I was about 30 years old, but now I really feel it. So
yeah, I guess your priorities change too, right?
Priorities change a lot. Yeah.
That's interesting. I like that.
Do we have time for any more, Tara, or are we going into wrap-up mode here?
I mean, we're getting near the end, but if there's a nice question out there, I don't see why we can't do a real quick response, although we're not known for being quick in our responses.
Yeah, no, I ramble on, but this is the weekly show. They say I get to ramble and rant. Yeah, I don't know. This is one, TC's asked another question. You get a twofer today, TC. What about as a parent, since you've been talking about dinner at home? I'll have to think about this because I don't want to brush it off, and I think that I'm sure I've messed up as a parent in a lot of ways. And the thing that, as could be expected, like that I have the most guilt about is always that I got divorced, and my kids were really small, really only the oldest remembers back before being divorced or getting that news. But, telling the kids that we were breaking up was the second hardest day of my life, probably. And I was very fortunate in that, again, because I had just sold a business, I made the choice to spend really the last 10 years as being a parent first and then doing nonprofit work, writing, speaking, but it was really always parent first. So, I've been like, even today, I mean, my one daughter's off to college. The next one is going into senior year, just started her senior year of high school. And, Natalie asked me last night, she's old enough to drive. She can drive herself to high school. Phew.
Wow.
And she asked me last night, she's like, so Dad, are you making my lunches or am I making my lunches? Meaning, am I going to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning when I don't have to drive her to school to make her lunch and see her off? And I said, I can't promise I'll always do it, but I'll see you in the morning, because I just wanted to have that, connection point and see her off. And we'll have dinner, all together tonight. But, there's no such thing as a perfect parent. So whether it's I've got a bad day, so I've barked at them or lost my temper with them, or, I think like this year of LEADx, first year of a startup, is always the most brutal. So I'm certainly not as available to the kids as much as I was the previous 9 years, but I'm hoping that there's like the emotional bank account where, I've built up enough goodwill that if they don't see Dad around quite as much this year, they won't hold it against me.
Well, no, they're teenagers. They're like, yay, less Dad around.
Yeah, it's very true. It's like, you can get them at the dinner table. They don't always want to talk. I got great kids, but as teens, it is a little different.
Yeah, it is. I remember. Awesome. Thank you, TC, for that too. I appreciate it.
So let us wrap up another week of the LEADx show. Thanks for all the folks on Facebook for tuning in live and asking your questions. It always gives us some energy, right, Tara? Like, really are better when we've got the energy, people joining us. So thanks for that. Don't forget, everybody, go to leadx.org/subscribe. Hit that subscribe button and leave a rating, however many stars you want. That's the best favor you can do for us. It really helps us to build the LEADx family. Submit your question for next week's show by going to leadx.org/askkevin. Facebook friends, before I lose you, hit that like, hit that share, and then like each other's comments up and down. That's kind of a virtual way to high five each other for showing up and hanging out. And I think we're good, Tara, right? Any final words of advice or wisdom?
No, I think I covered all the wisdom I know. So that's all I've got.
Including lots of butter and desserts.
Oh, God, don't remind me. I'm going to go for a run around the block now.
There's that new Soul Cycle on 16th. I don't know.
Is there? Okay, because I do have a free pass to Flywheel, so I literally have no excuses. So everyone feel free to hold me accountable, email me, go on LEADx, be like, Tara, did you go to Flywheel? Did you go to Flywheel? Because that's probably going to push me. Yeah, feel free.
All right.
Hold me accountable.
You've got 100,000 monthly accountability partners now.
I do. That is too many, but I'll take it.
All right, friends, until next time, remember, leadership is not a choice because leadership is influence. We are all leaders all of the time. You influence in one direction or the other. Are you going to be a positive influencer or a negative influencer? Don't be a bystander in your own life. Be mindful with your influence. How will you lead today?